What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for a brand new season here on Ben Builds Military Mondays. We're going to go ahead and start up a new project today, and it's going to last definitely a couple of weeks. It's going to be a fun one too, so let's go ahead and check it out. We're going to be building the 1/48 scale Hobby Boss F3H Demon. This is something I've been wanting to build for a good long while. I bought this kit when it first came out years ago, just never got around to building it. And I kind of went back and forth, but finally I talked myself back into building it, and with a little bit of extra encouragement from Joe and BG, we're able to go ahead and we're going to jump in and see what we can do. Right off the bat, it is a very nice looking box art. We've got a couple of schemes we can paint, 4 different ones to be exact, so you can see some here on the side of the box and the other side as well. So some pretty interesting looking paint schemes and markings, so that is awesome. Let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at some of the plastic, which honestly looks really nice. We've got finely recessed panel lines, a little bit of rivet detail here and there, but overall a really good looking bit of plastic. Happy about that for sure, especially coming off of that Savage. We've got some awesome detail there in the burner can, in the engine trunking, as well as the side consoles for the cockpit. So I think this will build up into a really nice looking model. Get you a real quick close up here and you can see some of the detail. Again, like I said, very finely recessed. Looks in good order for sure. Again, the detail there on the engine trunking and the engine burner can, really nice looking detail. We have even some photo etch for this too that comes with the kit, so that's going to be interesting as well. And then of course, side consoles, instrument panel detailing, really good looking stuff here. Moving on to the nose, same thing, finely recessed panel lines, a little bit of rivet detail here and there. We are given the add-on for the mid-air refueling probe, so that's good, and a multi-part ejection seat, which I don't know if it's very accurate just yet. I need to go back and do a bit more research, but overall, great looking parts and pieces. We even have a very nice looking instrument panel. We do have the decals as well, but a little bit of paint here, dry brushing, some detailing. I think it'll turn out to be a nice looking cockpit right out of the box. Moving on over to the wings as well, very finely recessed panel lines, awesome looking detail. We are given a wing fold mechanism here in the kit, so we could come along here and cut this line. We have a nice recessed marking on the inside of the wing that will help guide our blade, and that will give us the option of separating these wings and folding them. So that could be something that I might want to do. And we are given some pre-drilled locating holes here for our different pylons, but you'll notice there they aren't pushed all the way through, so we don't have to add them if we don't want to. We've got the inner pylon and the outer pylon connection points, but I've actually read that the outer pylon is incorrectly placed. The inner pylon is fine, but the outer pylon should be closer to the wing fold. Now, I'm not necessarily going to use those, but if I do, we can go in and shift them over, should be fine. Top of the wing as well, beautifully recessed panel lines. We do also have that very strong line there for the wing fold, so that's good to know. And then everything else looks awesome. So yeah, very nice looking plastic here for sure. I think it's going to be a joy to work with. And then of course the other poly bags with our wheels, our landing gears, our ordnance, all that stuff. I won't bore you with all the different parts and pieces, but suffice it to say, they look pretty good. I think they'll go together nicely. Now for our instructions, these are very typical Hobby Boss instructions. They look great. They've got beautiful line drawings, and I think these are going to be pretty easy to read. Sometimes they can be a little misleading, but yeah, for the most part, these look great. They have all the different part breakdowns and the color breakdowns as well. We of course start off in the cockpit with all of the side consoles, instrument panels, and the ejection seat, which again, I've got to look back and see if it's accurate. If it's not, I might have to do some work on that or replace it. Then of course we get into the front nose area where we install the landing gear bay. Then we install everything into the front nose, and we get the nose hooked onto the bulkhead, and then we put the bulkhead into the fuselage. So we actually kind of build the fuselage around the nose in the cockpit, which is interesting. Kind of a neat little design feature. We even had some detail in the section right behind the pilot seat. That's an area that's usually neglected by a lot of kit manufacturers, so it's good to see we've got some parts there. And then of course we have our spoilers that are all photo etch, as well as our movable control surfaces and our air brakes that are also photo etch. But the strange thing is we actually glue the photo etch on top of a solid plastic part. That's not necessarily going to be very advantageous for having photo etch, so we might want to go ahead and maybe rebuild that or something, because you're going to lose the transparency of all those little perforations. Then we continue our photo etch there on the front leading edge of the wings with all of our different fences, and these are also photo etch, so that's going to be very handy to have. And then of course we have got our movable control surfaces, our pitot tube, as well as our spoiler. So yeah, looking pretty decent. Now one place I'm a little bit concerned about are the front nose inserts for the twin 20mm cannons. These are going to have to be dry fitted for sure to make sure we don't have any steps or seams, so that might be a little troublesome, but we'll have to see when we get there. And then we're given the mid-air refueling probe, which I don't think is on every single Demon that we've got here, and of course our arrestor hook, and then we've got our landing gears, struts, actuators, and then our pylons for our weapons. Of course we've got our drop tanks, we've got our missiles, then we have our breakdowns for the different stations. And now these these center stations would be only for drop tanks. We have our missiles on the wings, but I don't know which ones I would be using because again, it's got to go off the references. So we'll see how it goes, but again, great instructions, and I think they'll get us through the process. For our color markings and our decal placement, we've got this awesome sheet here. It's actually folded in half. It's very large, and we have all of our different paint schemes. And as you can see, the one on the box art is featured prominently right here on the very first page, and it's got some great looking colors. Then we can flip it over and we can see the other 3 schemes, and these are all very, very nice. I like how these are looking. Aircraft from the Black Lions, from the Jolly Rogers, and from the Freelancers. And lastly, let's take a look at the decals. We are given 2 sheets of decals, and they look pretty decent. They don't look too thick, they don't look too thin, they have nice printing, they are nice and glossy, so I don't think there'll be much of an issue with these. I've never had trouble with Hobby Boss decals in the past, so I'm hoping that these are going to be just as nice. Go ahead and open this one up as well. Our second decal sheet is of course our national markings, all of our tail codes, and our wing walks, which I'll probably end up painting. So yeah, I'm actually surprised at how big these decals are. It must be a very large plane because these are some giant looking decals. Again, nicely printed though, I don't have any issues with them. I think they are in good registry, and hopefully they'll work great with Microsol and Microset. Now on to one of my favorite topics here, references. And for this build, I've got 2 major references. The first one here is Naval Fighter Series number 12 for the Demon. This is an awesome book. I love everything in the Naval Fighters series. They've got great line drawings. They've got a ton of information from start to finish, prototype to the last version made, goes through all the different changes, all the different measurements. We've got great shots of like the cockpit and the wheelbase and all that, along with line drawings. Like in this case, we've got the ejection seat nicely mapped out with all the seat belts and wires and all that. So awesome to have that information. And then we have things like the radar installation. We've got the different ammo bays, cannon ports, armament. We've got the wheels, landing gears, all the struts and actuators you could ever want. So it's a great reference for all the parts and pieces. Then of course, one of my favorite sections is where it goes through every single unit that operated the Demon. So it's got all of the experimental units, all of the units that deployed with them, all the good stuff here. So it's got great shots. It should be able to go ahead and go in and look up every single scheme that we've got here in the instruction manual and check out what they look like in real life. So yeah, really helpful for sure. And then in the back of the book, we have a little bit of a what if section, and you'll notice something kind of interesting. This version right here, this is actually one of the early prototypes for the Phantom, because the Demon is actually the predecessor to the Phantom. So you can see a little bit of some lineage here through the Demon. Again, Naval Fighters, awesome book, highly recommended anything in that series. And then our second book is going to be the Detail in Scale book. Another great series for sure. This is a newer print, and they do have an ebook version as well. I decided to go with the hard copy, but this, like the Naval Fighter series, will go through all the different designs, all the different features, all the makes from prototype to the last version made. It's got some great photos, some color photos, but also some black and white photos. It's got some great comparison shots as well as line drawings. It's got everything you could need in there, so that is awesome. And then it goes through all the units, much like the Naval Fighter series. However, it's got much less information, but it does have some nice color profiles, give you guys a look at how these demons would be painted. And the final section here is one of my personal favorites, is the modeler section, and this is where it goes through all the different models for different scales here of the Demon. In this case, we start off here in 1/72nd scale, and then we move over here to 1/48 scale, which is where I tend to live. And we've got a very nice write-up on the Hobby Boss kit as well as the Grand Phoenix kit, which I also actually own as well. I would have built the Grand Phoenix kit, but it's got a lot of resin and photo etch and all these white metal, and I just really didn't want to fool with it. So we're going to stick to the Hobby Boss version. But as you can see on the other page, this is the entire write-up there for the Hobby Boss kits, and it doesn't pull any punches. It actually gives you a really nice shot at what's wrong with the Hobby Boss kits to prepare you to actually build them. It's a lot of detail to go into, so I'll kind of give you a rough overview, but this is kind of how I see it. So Hobby Boss makes 2 demons. This one here is the -2 version, which is of course what we're going to be building. But they also make this version right here, which is the 2N version. Also 1/48 scale, Hobby Boss, very nice looking kit. Now these 2 versions differ in a couple significant ways, one of which is the rear tail. As you see here on the box art for the -2, we have a longer tail, and that is called a beaver tail. Now that beaver tail was not actually used on the -2s. The -2s had a shorter tail. From what the references tell me, that the -2N and -2M would have had the longer tail. So if you want to build a -2, you have to go out and buy the Hobby Boss -2N kit, and that one will get you what you need, and vice versa. So kind of weird, not exactly perfect, but hear me out here. I think I can still build something, because if you check out this one right here from VF61 from Jolly Rogers, look at our decal kit right here. This we can actually build. It's got the longer beaver tail. Here we got the longer beaver tail on the image as well. And this is actually an F3H-2M. So we can actually build that decently from the kit. Doesn't have the shorter tail, it's got the longer tail. So that should be a pretty good bet. Zooming in here, as you can see, we've got some really nice looking details. This isn't the exact same aircraft as what we have in our decals, but it is from the same unit, so we have a good idea about weathering patterns, good idea about markings, and yeah, some really nice looking detail. So this is going to help us out immensely. Fingers crossed. If we go ahead and use our VF61 Jolly Rogers markings there from the Hobby Boss kit, we can use everything in the kit and it should turn out all right. But of course, that does leave a little bit of a discrepancy with the decals. And so let's go ahead and take a look at those real quick. As you can see, these are marked for the F3H-2. This is actually incorrect though, because it should be a -2M. So I went through my spares box and I located a couple of decal sheets for other aircraft that would have carried that designation. And as you can see here, we've got an F7U3M from an old Cutlass build back in the day. That I can go ahead and just take that M clean off this decal and swap it over here for my -2. I also have an A4M. Again, I could also just cut that M off and swap it over and use it here for the Demon. Unfortunately though, the A4M decal is a little bit wider, a little bit squattier, not exactly the right color shift. So I think I'm probably better off with the Cutlass M than I am with the A4 Skyhawk M. Of course, another option would be just to go out and buy the 2N and swap over decals, but I want to use what I have. I don't want to spend much money, so we're going to go with it. We're going to try it. Either way, we've got some options, so I think we can make it work. If anything, it's just going to be a 3-foot rule type of aircraft, so we're going to give it our best. But that is it, guys. That's what we're going to be building here for the next couple of weeks on Military Mondays. I'm really excited to jump in, and I think it's going to be a fun build, even though, yeah, I would really have loved to have built this Felix the Cat motif. It's got a great looking paint scheme, but it's got that longer tail, which is just not accurate. It doesn't work for this particular version, so we're not going to be able to do that. But armed with our references, both the Naval Fighters and the Detail and Scale book, I think we can actually pull out a decent looking Demon. Not going to be perfect, mind you, but I think it's going to be close enough that at least artistically, with the internet and any sort of other ebooks I might find in my stash. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and run with it. We're going to build up the aircraft from the Jolly Rogers and hopefully make a decent looking Demon. It's going to be a lot of work though, I have a feeling. And again, I might want to fold those wings. I don't know yet. Lots to do, lots to figure out. We're going to have some fun with this one. So until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. And we'll see you back here on episode 2 of our F3H Demon here on Military Mondays. Until then, take care of yourselves and we'll see you soon.